I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay with me. This morning, today, June 9th, 2026, as we are recording, David Grush stood on the steps of the United States Capitol alongside Congressman Tim Burchett, Eric Burleson, Anna Paulina Luna, and Jared Moskowitz. Investigative journalist Leslie Kean and filmmaker James Fox hosted. Over 1 billion people have now accessed the Pursue files. Grush discussed specific classified evidence of non-human intelligence. And among the categories of NHI discuss, alongside retrieved craft and biological specimens, was something that I generally do not have on my bingo card. Intelligent plasmoid life forms. Not metal ships, not gray aliens, not interdimensional tricksters. They're there. Plasma, the fourth state of matter, the stuff lightning is made of, the stuff that makes up 99% of the visible universe. And someone stood on the steps of the Capitol building and used the phrase intelligent plasmoid life forms with a straight face in front of cameras and Congress. Now here's the part where you either close this tab or buckle in, because in 1951, 75 years ago, a physicist named David Bohm was working at Princeton with Albert Einstein, and while studying plasma in a laboratory, he noticed something that disturbed him so deeply he spent the rest of his life trying to explain it. The plasma was behaving as if it were alive. This is the Sovereign Investigation, Volume 6. This is the living signal. You're listening to the Sovereign System, where the fringe meets the framework. I'm John.
And I'm Dave.
Quick programming note. If you're new here, welcome to the deep end. There is no shallow end. The shallow end was episode 1. We're on episode 17. The lifeguard left in episode 4. We're unsupervised now.
Today's episode is about whether UFOs might be alive. Not piloted by something alive. Alive, as in the craft is the creature, and a physicist who worked with Einstein saw it coming 75 years ago.
The framework is David Bohm's implicate order. The novelty spike is the Capitol press conference that happened this morning. The deep dive is the plasma hypothesis, and by the end of this episode, you will never look at lightning the same way again. Let's go.
So the press conference happened?
Dave, the press conference happened.
Okay, walk me through your reaction, John.
Dave, I've been doing this show for 17 episodes, and I have read about missing scientists. I've studied at Harvard, psychiatrist who got investigated for believing his patients. I've learned that the CIA spent 23 years training psychics. I thought it was unshockable. I thought my shock absorbers were fully calibrated. And then someone said intelligent plasmoid life forms on the steps of the United States Capitol, and my shock absorbers filed for bankruptcy as we speak.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I was sitting there watching the live stream like a normal person, and Grush is talking about crash retrievals, and I'm nodding, I'm tracking, I've got my color-coded notebook from last episode, and the phrase plasmoid life forms enters the conversation, and I literally said out loud to nobody in my house or in my home, "Excuse me."
Your neighbors must love podcast recording days.
My neighbors think I run a support group for people who have been personally wronged by the government, which is fair.
Let me give some context for the architects who didn't watch live. The June 9th Capitol Press Conference was the event we previewed in episode 16. Grush, Burchett, Luna, Burleson, Moskowitz, Leslie Kean hosting, James Fox hosting. The three formal demands were declassification of specific UAP-related records Grush has identified by name, passage of the UAP Disclosure Act as formal legislation, and expanded whistleblower protections. But beyond the legislative demands, the conversation expanded into the nature of what's being encountered, and one of the categories discussed was non-biological NHI. Entities that are not made of flesh, bone, or any familiar biological material. Entities that may be composed of, that's right, plasma.
And this is where it gets wild, because this isn't fringe speculation. A peer reviewed paper published in the Journal of Modern Physics in 2024, 109 pages, is titled, and I'm reading this verbatim, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Extraterrestrial Life, Plasmoids, Shapeshifters, Replicons, Thunderstorms, Lightning, Hallucinations, Aircraft Disasters, Ocean Sightings. This is the actual title of a peer reviewed paper in a physics journal.
And the paper's argument is that many UAP observations, particularly the luminous, shape-shifting, accelerating, defying objects, may be plasma-based entities, not artificial craft, not biological organisms, a fourth state of matter exhibiting what authors described as lifelike behaviors. They document the case of plasma objects accelerating, decelerating, stopping, conjugating, engaging what they call hunter-predatory behavior, and leaving plasma dust trails.
Hunter predatory behavior. Lightning is hunting, and I'm going to need a moment, Dave.
And here's why this matters for our framework. Last episode, we covered Project Stargate, consciousness as an intelligence gathering tool. Episode 15, Valet's control system, the phenomenon changing costumes across centuries. Episode 14, Kuhn's paradigm, the system that decides what's real. Every one of those episodes assumed the phenomenon was either a thing you observe or a force that acts on you. The plasmoid hypothesis, however, introduces a third possibility.
The phenomenon is alive.
The phenomenon might be alive, and a physicist working with Albert Einstein saw it in a laboratory in 1951. David Joseph Baum, born December 20th, 1917, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, died October 27th, 1992, London, one of the most important theoretical physicists of the 20th century. Undergraduate at Penn State, PhD at UC Berkeley under J. Robert Oppenheimer. Yes, that Oppenheimer, assistant professor at Princeton, where he worked alongside Albert Einstein. Einstein called him a kindred spirit and said Baum's textbook on quantum theory was the best he'd ever read.
So, Oppenheimer's student, Einstein's friend, not a guy making YouTube videos from a spare bedroom.
Not a guy making YouTube videos from a spare bedroom.
Unlike some people,
John.
I'm just saying our production values are a choice. Continue.
At Berkeley, Baum began his landmark work on plasmas. Plasma is the fourth state of matter, after solid, liquid, and gas. When you heat a gas to extreme temperatures, the electrons separate from the atoms. You get a soup of free electrons and ions. That's plasma. It makes up 99% of the visible matter in the universe. Stars are plasma. Lightning is plasma. The aurora borealis is plasma. The sun is a giant ball of plasma.
So we live in the 1% of the universe that isn't plasma?
Correct. We're the anomaly. Plasma is the norm.
That's actually the most unsettling reframe of the night, and we haven't even gotten to the scary part yet.
Now, here is what Baum found, and I want to be precise because this is sourced directly from multiple biographies. When Baum studied electrons in plasma, he was surprised to find that they stopped behaving like individual particles and started behaving as if they were part of a larger, interconnected whole. The seemingly random movements of individual electrons produced highly organized collective effects, and Baum later remarked, this is a direct biological note. He frequently had the impression that the sea of electrons was in some sense alive.
A physicist at Princeton working with Einstein studying the most common state of matter in the universe, and he said it looked alive.
He said it behaved as if it was alive. The distinction matters. He wasn't claiming plasma is a biological organism. He was observing that the organizational behavior, the self-coordination, the collective movement, the emergent order resembled living systems more than inert matter.
Okay, but Dave, resembled is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. My Roomba resembles a living thing when it bumps into a furniture and changes direction. That doesn't make it sentient. That makes it a very expensive coaster with commitment issues.
Fair, but Baum didn't stop there. This observation led him to develop his most radical idea, the implicate order.
Not implicit, implicate.
The implicate order is Baum's model of reality. He proposed that the universe has two layers. The explicate order, that's the visible, measurable, tangible world, everything you can see, touch, and weigh. The explicate order is what science normally studies, and underneath it, and folded within it, is the implicate order, a deeper hidden layer of undivided wholeness where everything is internally connected to everything else. And the explicate order unfolds from the implicate order, the way a wave unfolds from the ocean. The wave looks separate, but it's always been a part of the ocean.
That's Valet's control system, episode 15, the hidden layer that produces the visible phenomena.
That's exactly what it is. And Baum went further. He wrote that life and consciousness are, quote, and I'm putting this in my own words to respect the source, enfolded deep in the generative order and are therefore present in varying degrees in all matter, including supposedly inanimate objects and matter, such as electrons or plasmas. He proposed that there is a proto-intelligence in matter itself.
Proto intelligence in matter, including plasma.
A physicist who worked with Einstein is on the record saying that plasma exhibits behaviors consistent with a primitive form of intelligence. And 75 years later, somebody stood on the Capitol steps and used the phrase intelligent plasmoid life forms.
Run the synchronicity scan from episode 16. Question 1. How many independent threads are converging? Baum's 1951 plasma observations, the 2024 Journal of Modern Physics paper, the Capitol press conference today, the Foo Fighters from World War II, pilots reported luminous plasma objects tracking their aircraft in the 1940s, ball lightning reports going back centuries, will o' the wisps in European folklore, Aboriginal Min lights in Australia, Japanese Hitodama ghost lights. That's at least 8 independent threads across 80 years of modern observation and centuries of folklore.
And here's what makes Baum different from every other framework we've introduced. Sagan, episode 13, said, show me the evidence. Kuhn, episode 14, said, watch the paradigm. Valet, episode 15, said, it's a control system. Jung, episode 16, says, it's a collective unconscious. Baum says, the distinction you're drawing between alive and not alive, between conscious and not conscious, between the observer and the phenomenon, that distinction is itself the illusion. The implicate order, there is no boundary between mind and matter. The universe is a single, undivided movement, and plasma, the state of matter that constitutes 99% of the visible universe, might be where the undivided wholeness is most visible.
So, the UFO isn't visiting us from outside reality. The UFO might be reality in a state we don't normally see becoming visible.
Baum would say the implicate order is always here. Occasionally, it unfolds into the explicate. And when it does, you see a light in the sky that moves nothing like mechanical should move, because it's not mechanical. It's not even a thing. It's a process, an unfolding.
I just want everybody to know that it's 11 p.m. I've had 4 cups of coffee. A physicist who worked with Einstein is telling me the universe is alive, and I need to be at the grocery store tomorrow at 9 a.m. like a normal person. This is what the show does to your Tuesday nights.
Now, there's a part of Baum's story that connects to everything we've covered about paradigm defense and institutional suppression, and it's important.
McCarthy?
McCarthy. Well, at Berkeley, Baum, who was idealistic and politically engaged, was labeled a communist sympathizer by FBI under J. Edgar Hoover. This prevented him from getting a security clearance to work with Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos. Even though Oppenheimer was his thesis advisor, in 1949, Baum was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee. He refused to testify against colleagues. Princeton suspended him. Einstein personally tried to intervene on his behalf and failed. Baum was arrested, charged with contempt of Congress, eventually acquitted, but Princeton refused to renew his contract. He was effectively exiled from American physics. He spent the rest of his career in Brazil, Israel, and England. He never returned to the United States as a working physicist.
So let me get this straight. A man who worked with Einstein, whose quantum mechanics textbook was considered the best ever written, who made fundamental discoveries about plasma, quantum theory, and the nature of reality. He was driven out of this country not for bad science, for bad politics.
Kuhn's Paradigm Defense, Episode 14. The attack moved from the science to the person. The goalposts moved. It wasn't about his research, it was about his associations. The response was institutional, not intellectual, and the social cost was wildly disproportionate to any actual offense.
John Mack, Episode 14, investigated for believing his patients. Amy Eskridge, Episode 13, harassed for researching anti-gravity. David Bohm, exiled for refusing to betray his colleagues. The specific mechanism changes, the pattern doesn't.
And Baum's exile meant that his later work, The Implicate Order, the ideas about consciousness and matter, the plasma observations, was developed outside American physics establishment. It was never taken as seriously as it would have been if he remained at Princeton with Einstein's backing. The paradigm didn't just punish Baum, it deprived itself of his best ideas.
Which is exactly what Kuhn predicts. The immune response doesn't just attack the anomaly, it damages the host. The system becomes less intelligent by expelling its most creative thinkers.
And 75 years later, we're catching up to what Baum was trying to tell us from exile.
Alright, we've been doing this for 16 episodes. Every episode gets a tool. This one is no different. Dave, what's the new instrument?
The implicate audit, Baum's framework applied as a perceptual tool. 3 questions you ask when you encounter something, anything that seems impossible, inexplicable, or anomalous.
Question 1.
Am I seeing the unfolding or the source? The explicate order is what you observe. The implicate order is what produces the observation. When you see a UAP, or a market crash, or a synchronicity, or a crisis, you're seeing an unfolding. The source is deeper. Don't mistake the wave for the ocean.
Applied to the plasmoid question, the luminous object in the sky is the unfolding. The question is, what's enfolded beneath it?
Question 2. What boundaries am I assuming that might not exist? Baum said the separation between observer and observed, between mind and matter, between alive and not alive. These are useful distinctions for everyday life, but they're not real at the deepest level. When you encounter something anomalous, ask, what category am I forcing this into? And what happens if I remove the category?
Like the category of alive versus not alive. We've spent this whole episode asking, is plasma alive? Baum would say that's the wrong question. The question is the boundary between alive and not alive real, or is it a convenience we invented?
Question 3. What's connected that I'm treating as separate? Baum's entire career was about seeing the hidden connections between things that appear separate: plasma and consciousness, physics and philosophy, the observer and the observed. When you encounter an anomaly, the implicate audit asks, what if the anomaly is showing me a connection I couldn't see before?
So, the full stack is now. The Sovereign Inquiry Protocol, 5 questions, personal clarity. The Sovereign Detection Protocol, 7 questions, claim evaluation. The Paradigm Audit, 5 markers, institutional suppression. The Control Audit, 4 questions, narrative manipulation. The Synchronicity Scan, 5 questions, pattern evaluation. The Implicate Audit, 3 questions, perceptual boundaries. 29 tools, 11 frameworks, 17 episodes. At this point, the Sovereign operating system has more diagnostic tools than my car, and my car is a 2019 Honda Civic, so that's actually not saying much, but the point stands, Dave.
The tools don't tell you what to believe, they tell you how to look. And Baum's contribution is the deepest perceptual shift we introduced yet. Sagan tells you to question the evidence, Kuhn tells you to question the institution, Bella tells you to question the narrative, Jung tells you to question the coincidence, Baum tells you to question the categories. Alive, dead, real, unreal, observer, observed. He says those walls are painted in the explicative order. Beneath them, it's all one movement.
Sovereign win. What's the homework?
This week's assignment is called the boundary map. Take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write things I believe are alive. On the right side, write things I believe are not alive. Fill both columns. Then look at the boundary, look at the line, and ask Baum's question. Is the line real or did I put it there? What would change if I erased it?
And then, because this is the week Disclosure Day opens, go see the movie on June 12th. And when you're sitting in the theater and Spielberg shows you whatever he's going to show you, run every tool we've given you, all 29, the detection protocol, the paradigm audit, the control audit, the synchronicity scan, and now the implicate audit. Ask yourself, am I seeing the unfolding or the source? What boundaries am I assuming? What's connected that I'm treated as separate?
And read Baum. Wholeness in the implicate order is the foundational text. It's dense, it's worth it, it'll change the way you literally see everything.
Now close. This morning, a whistleblower stood on the Capitol steps and the phrase intelligent plasmoid lifeforms entered the public record. 75 years ago, a physicist at Princeton looked at plasma in a laboratory and said, "This is alive." He was exiled for his politics and ignored for his ideas. He spent the rest of his life in other countries building a model of reality that said the universe has hidden layer where everything is connected and consciousness is woven into the fabric of matter itself. David Bohm died in London in 1992. He never saw the Pursue files. He never heard a congressman say plasmoid. He never watched Spielberg release a movie called Disclosure Day, but he saw the plasma move in a way that shouldn't have been possible, and instead of looking away, he looked closer. He looked so close that Princeton couldn't hold him, that America couldn't hold him, that the entire explicate order of 20th century physics couldn't hold what he was trying to say. What he was trying to say was this: there is no boundary between you and the universe. There is no wall between alive and not alive. There is no separation between the absorber and the light in the sky. And if this sounds like mysticism, remember, he was saying it while solving quantum equations on a chalkboard next to Albert Einstein. The plasma is alive, the universe is alive, and maybe, just maybe, the thing we've been calling a UFO isn't visiting from somewhere else, it's the universe looking at itself. And we just got permission to look back. Be the architect.
Sovereign Investigation, Volume 6, The Living Signal.
See you on the other side of Disclosure Day. I'll be in the theater, row 7, seat 4, running 29 diagnostic tools on Steven Spielberg, while quietly weeping into my popcorn.
You're gonna get kicked out.
I'm going to get kicked out with the most thoroughly analyzed emotional breakdown in cinema history. There's a difference, Dave.
There really isn't, John.
There really isn't. Good night, architects. The plasma says hi. That was either profound or insane, and I honestly can't tell anymore.